Hi everyone, Lisa here from Fireside Strategic. Welcome to our video cast, Humanity Builds Better Businesses, where we celebrate leaders that do transformational work within organizations, helping their clients grow and lead teams with humanity. Today, I'm chatting with Cathryn Lecorre, leadership and team coach and social change facilitator. She's also the co-founder of White Raven Collective and of Elevating Leadership Alliance. Cathryn, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me, Lisa. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited for our conversation.
Me too. Somewhere where I would love to start is you're working on a lot of different things between the collective, the alliance, and your own coaching practice. Could you give our audience just an overview of what is the bigger mission or cause that you're working toward with all of these things?
Beautiful. Well, before I dive into that, I would like to give some context to who I am and where I'm calling in from. So I want to acknowledge I'm calling in from the traditional lands of the Lekwungen and Esquimalt nations on Vancouver Island. And I'm a visitor here in Victoria, British Columbia. And I was born in Liberia in Africa to English parents and have Welsh, Scottish, and English background is my ancestry. So I just want to acknowledge the context in which I'm coming into this conversation. I and my family immigrated to Canada when I was 5 years old. And so I had the privilege and honor and challenge of living in 3 different cultures by the time I was 5 years old. And I learned that in each different place and space, there were different rules of behaving and different mindsets, different values, different things that mattered to people. And I found myself experiencing some inner conflict about who am I and who am I as an am I African? Am I English? Am I Canadian? And then being white and arriving here on the Indigenous lands, a lot of the conversation here in Canada is now about Indigenous and settler constructs. So I've been working around identity and who am I and what matters for most of my life. And so that's really informed the work that I do. I have been inquiring into who are we, who am I, and why are we here, and how do we work together when there's differences such as Blacks and whites, such as Indigenous and settler, such as gender, man and woman. There's these inner tensions and conflicts that we all experience individually in our own sense of place and space, as well as in our relationships with intimate others, like our families and partnerships, as well as systemically. We see it outside in, especially now, there's so much coming up to be revealed and healed. So my work really has focused on how do we engage the hearts and the minds and the will of people to engage in change, to co-create change. And so I focus on empowering collaborative leadership so that we co-create the change we want to see in the world. And I do that through coaching, social change facilitation. I'm also a Kundalini yoga teacher and I do 40-day practices. So there's multiple ways I engage this conversation.
There's so much of that resonates with me, partially because of my own personal story. So I immigrated to the United States when I was 6 years old from the former Soviet Union, Belarus, and grew up in a Russian Jewish family in the US. So I completely understand this feeling of identity crisis when there are so many different definitions of norms. I'm very curious to learn a little more about, in your experience and in your work, what are the main kind of identity questions that you're helping people answer within the context of not just personal life, but also in a company where they have to collaborate together on building something?
Oh, that's such a good question, Lisa. I'm thinking about one of the projects that I worked on that made a difference. It was creating learning communities with Lorianne Demers, who you've also interviewed here on this podcast. And her work really begins in personal power, which is the sense of who am I beyond my ethnicity, beyond my culture, beyond my gender. Each of us have a unique purpose that we're here for, a unique thumbprint, a unique gift to bring to this world that no one else can bring but ourselves. And so this process, personal power, supports people to uncover and reveal the truth of who they are, and as well as their own individual mission and vision and essence in the world, and then to create from that place. So when I worked in a health organization, I was an internal leadership and organizational development consultant for over 15 years. And one of the great projects I had a privilege to participate in was supporting the building and establishment of a new outpatient care facility in British Columbia. And part of the intention of the leadership was to create a transformation of culture as well as the change to the physical building. So there's a physical change that was happening, and there was an opportunity, much like the time we're in right now. There's a physical change happening as things are opening and people are reintegrating to gathering together. There's also a great opportunity for transformation in how we meet and how we greet and who we are with each other. And so that question of who am I beyond all my roles? What's my gift, my purpose, my strengths? And then to create from that place was simply beautiful. We had over 300 people, employees, leaders, physicians, managers, housekeepers. Everyone went through this program together, and they got to relate to each other from that place of their unique beingness, their unique gift. And it created a space of healing, of integration, of coherence in the multiple facilities or multiple programs that were within that one facility, where there could be flow and trust and respect of each other at a really deep level.
I think it's amazing that you're helping people find what's underneath the differences and come from such an authentic place. That's wonderful. I am curious, what is your advice for leaders and other people who work in companies who are trying to find that space of authenticity, that space of coming from really being who they really are? How do they do that? How do they access?
Such an important question. I really believe this is the access to innovation and creativity that so many of us are seeking, as we realize we need different solutions. We need new ways of approaching how we're being and living and working in the world. And the greatest gift we can give to ourselves and our communities is by taking time for self-reflection, for journaling, for meditating, for yoga. There's many different practices that people engage. And what I believe is a difference that makes a difference is like 30 minutes a day, like at least, if not more, 30 to 90 minutes a day dedicated to self-study, self-inquiry, self-reflection, about being my value and living my values in the everyday world. This is the greatest challenge, right? We know there's so much out there about leadership and principles and models, but the challenge is living it each day in practice, in this conversation that's difficult that I don't want to have. Am I being true to my values? So to close that gap between what we know and what we do is the greatest challenge and opportunity of these times.
I love that advice. It's so important. And I think especially for, a lot of leaders have these packed schedules where they are always doing things back to back to back to back to back. And I think that advice to take half an hour at least and stop doing and just turn inward and reflect, it's so important. And it's so important for helping people be better versions of themselves, to lead better, and to ultimately run better companies. How do you as a coach encourage people to step out of this place of doing, and respect that they need some space to just be and reflect?
Yeah. Well, a lot of the symptoms that are showing up that are getting in the way for people, like burnout, migraines, overwhelm, exhaustion. These are body tension. These are all indicators that how we're working isn't working. And so when leaders that I work with become aware of, oh, my overactive thyroid is due to how I'm working, how I like the do is not healthy for my body. It's not sustainable. And it's not, and I think this question around resilience is a really important conversation to have, because so much of resilience can be made personal, like, oh, I'm not taking enough time for self-care, and it's my fault that I'm not able to keep up to the demands of the organizations and the projects, which actually leaves out of accountability for the organizations. So what's the accountability for the organization to create work environments where managers can realistically achieve their goals and the expectations? What's the accountability of the workplace, of the team, to create the space for people to connect and come into relationship with each other first before getting into the actual task of the business? Because when we attend to physical safety in the organization through our teams having opportunity to connect in relationship, and how we do that is by being a safe place first. So for each meeting that I as a leader am hosting or facilitating, it's important that I'm a safe space, meaning that I'm not coming from reactivity or quick answers, that I actually feel present and grounded in myself so that others feel present and connected. And from that place, we can create the best solutions, the greatest, the quality of our decision making increases. We get access to innovative ideas, and also a place of renewal. Relationships and community are required for resilience as well. That's where, especially as women, this is a bit different than men. Men in times of stress, they tend to get into their work and into their mission. Women in times of stress tend and befriend. And so we build our resilience through our relationships with each other, through our connection with each other. So a simple meeting can be an opportunity to ask, how are you feeling? What are you needing in your work to perform? Can be a gift to just create 5-10 minutes to ask the team how and check in with each other, and it can create a completely different outcome and result.
What's so striking to me about that, what you just described, is that these are such big, lofty, and sometimes difficult to understand goals, this concept of coming back to yourself. But on the other hand, there are very practical, actionable things that we can do to help people achieve that. So something that's seemingly simple as creating manageable meetings, manageable deadlines. I love that you seem to have this ability to work with an organization to create the space for people to find themselves and achieve this bigger goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really in that intersection of where power, where really comes from in an organization to be able to achieve our goals collectively, comes from teams. The highest performing teams I've had the opportunity to work with are those where each leader and person knows who they are, their essence, their unique vision and mission, right? So there's room for difference, for people to express themselves differently, to have different strengths. And as a team, we have a common purpose, common goals. And when our team goals align with the organizational goals and values, and when my personal values align with the organizational goals and values, that's when we can get real coherence and alignment, and things can happen quickly. But to get there, we have to slow down and learn about each other and connect as human beings. And then our collective gifts and strengths start to create something that never would have existed without us.
Slowing down to speed up.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I I'm so curious, beyond the coaching that you do with companies, you're also the co-founder of White Raven Collective and Elevating Leadership Alliance. Could you tell us a little bit more about those? What are they?
Sure. White Raven Collective is dedicated to women empowering women to grow communities and partnerships and organizations. Because one thing we know, and being an internal employee change agent really and leader inside of a system is, and we're all actually former internal OD organizational development consultants and coaches, and who know and recognize that women especially need places and spaces where they can connect and be in their practice. And because this 30-minute to 90-minute of self-study, self-practice is a difference that makes a difference, we do that by supporting women to get on the mat, and a few good men. There's a few good men who join us as well. Who every morning we have a morning practice, 6:30 to 7. We do a Kundalini yoga meditation practice, and it's the support and the accountability with each other to show up, be in our practice. And we also tap into the collective field, which is a place of great nourishment and wisdom and support. So we empower women to live consciously and work consciously.
I love that. I mean, as a fellow female in the workplace, I definitely see the challenges, the unique challenges that women face. And I think it's so important to have that group and to have that support system and to have that place to come back to yourself. I love that you're building that. What about Elevating Leadership Alliance?
Elevate Leadership Alliance, we are a super group of 6 leadership development coaches and facilitators, and we're dedicating to elevated collaborative leadership. So we focus on supporting teams and social change and leaders through a 4-part model that integrates communication, leadership with change methodology. So we've taken the best of the best principles and practices and models and leadership and change from working internally and integrated it into a 4-part series that's very simple, that helps move from stuck to unstuck.
I love that. I feel like that's so needed. A lot of people feel stuck. Why do you think a lot of people feel stuck and they need to get unstuck?
Why are most people unstuck? Well, in my experience, when I get stuck, what that means to me is that there's a part of me that's not in alignment with where I'm going. So especially at this time of great change, there's a huge transformation of identity happening for many of us. Before COVID, there was like the work persona and the at-home persona. And during COVID, we've had to integrate these aspects of ourselves. And so our work and our living and family is all happening in one space. And so that integration, when there's stuckness, it means to me there's like stuff piled on top of each other, different competing value systems or belief systems, like I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, I can't do it. All of the programming that we have inherited from our families and our cultures that are coming up to be healed, really. I think the stuckness is a great opportunity. It's a great calling for healing and for self-awareness and for elevating consciousness, really, is what that really calls for. And coming back within to connect with my purpose, who I am, why I'm here, and then creating from that place.
Well, that resonated with me a lot. Why are we stuck? Because of these competing ideas and the fact that we're not aligned. It seems like this theme of alignment is so big throughout your work. I'm curious about, like, with all this work you're doing, you have this goal of social change. Can you tell me a little bit more about how this process of getting inside yourself and blocking out the things that are holding you back, getting in alignment, how does that facilitate social change?
Well, I believe social change happens through leadership. And I believe leadership is being true to who we are and bringing forth the potentials that keep tapping us on the shoulders, those projects that keep calling us forward. Like your creation of this beautiful platform was an idea, and it started as an idea and a tap, and you brought it forward and realized it in the world in a way that's offering value to so many people now. So that's an example of leadership in my experience. And the more people that are listening to those ideas and acting on them and realizing those goals, the better our society will be.
So going forward, what is the kind of the vision for this project? What's your goal for this coming year?
Well, my vision is empowering a culture of creation so that we elevate our world.
I love that.
Yeah, and Otto Sharma speaks about what's required in the decade. He calls it a decade of transformation. The next 10 years is an it's what's required in the next 10 years to really like realize the United Nations Development Goals 2030, to address climate change, to create the conditions for healthy, happy, whole societies and communities and people, will require each of us to step into our leadership and to transform ourselves from acting from ego to acting from our greater truth and our purpose and our unique gifts in the world. So I really align with his vision and the call to action of creating platforms for transformation and democratizing leadership, democratizing coaching principles and models and methods, and making them available to more and more people so that we empower our collective leadership.
So look, Cathryn, as we come to the end of our time together, a question I love to end with is, when you're not doing all this amazing leadership change and self-realization and teaching yoga, what do you like to do for fun?
Well, lately I've really been getting into planting a garden and dahlias. My husband and I, we love to, they were our wedding flower, and we've been planting them and learning about growing dahlias. So that's been super fun. I also love going to the beach and hiking in the woods and going to farmers markets and learning to cook with local and indigenous plants and food. And my diet's been changing, and so I've been learning a lot more recipes about that's more plant-based food. And so those are some of the things I enjoy to do. I also like to dance.
I think you like all the things that I like. I love that. That's like all of my favorite hobbies as well. Cathryn,
cool.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I thought there were so many beautiful insights there for me and for the leaders that watch the show. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation, Lisa.